Some of the richest people in the world say they all use the same strange technique. Athletes, actors, entrepreneurs, even teenagers who became millionaires before turning 20. They all repeat one sentence: act like you already have it. Not, I hope I'll become successful. Not, maybe one day. But, I already am. For some people, that sounds ridiculous. How could simply thinking about something change reality? It shouldn't. And yet, the idea refuses to disappear. For decades, people have claimed they attracted money, relationships, success, even impossible opportunities, simply by changing the way they thought. Most people call it manifestation, others call it the law of attraction, and many call it complete nonsense. But here's something strange. If manifestation is fake, why do so many successful people keep talking about it? Take Jim Carrey. Years before becoming famous, he wrote himself a check, $10 million. He dated it 5 years into the future. He kept it in his wallet. He looked at it constantly. Years later, he received a movie contract worth almost exactly $10 million. Coincidence? Maybe. Then there's Arnold Schwarzenegger. Long before becoming a Hollywood star, he said he imagined himself already standing on movie sets, already giving interviews, already being famous before any of it happened. Professional athletes do something similar. Before a race, before a championship, before the biggest moment of their lives, many close their eyes and mentally replay success again and again and again, not because they believe the universe is listening, but because they want their brain to believe it's possible. That's the interesting part. Most people think manifestation means sit on your couch, think positive thoughts, wait for money to fall from the sky. But almost nobody successful describes it that way. Instead, they describe something very different. Imagine two people. Both want to become rich. The first one wakes up every morning thinking, people like me never become millionaires. It's impossible. Someone else will always be luckier. The second person wakes up thinking, I'm building my future. I haven't made it yet, but I will. At first, nothing changes. They still wake up in the same room. They still have the same amount of money, the same problems, the same life, but something invisible has already started changing because your brain does something strange. It constantly searches for evidence that your beliefs are true. If you believe, nobody likes me, your brain notices every rejection and ignores every compliment. If you believe, I'll never succeed, your brain notices every failure and ignores every opportunity. But what happens if you genuinely believe success is coming? Not pretending, actually believing it. Something begins to change. You notice opportunities that you would have ignored yesterday. You start conversations you would have been too scared to have. You apply for jobs you would have assumed were impossible. You take risks. You learn faster. You recover from failure quicker. To someone watching from the outside, it almost looks like the universe is helping you. But maybe it's something much stranger. Maybe your brain changed first and your reality simply followed. The strange part is science has discovered something that sounds surprisingly similar. Not magic, not energy, not the universe, your own mind. Scientists have known about this for decades. Your brain receives millions of pieces of information every single second, far too much to consciously process, so it filters constantly. It decides what deserves your attention and what doesn't. Think about this. Have you ever learned a new word and suddenly started hearing it everywhere? Or bought a certain car, then noticed the exact same model on every road? The cars weren't suddenly appearing, they were always there. Your brain had simply decided they mattered now. Success works in a surprisingly similar way. Imagine you decide, I want to start a business. Yesterday, you would have scrolled past a video about marketing, ignored a book recommendation, skipped a networking event, never spoken to the person sitting next to you. Today, those same things suddenly stand out, not because the world changed, because your filter changed. And that small shift can completely change your future. This is where manifestation becomes interesting, not because it magically changes reality, but because it changes what you notice. And what you notice changes what you do. Most people never realize how much their identity controls their actions. If you believe, I'm lazy, you'll skip workouts, you'll procrastinate, you'll give up early, not because you're actually lazy, but because your brain wants your actions to match your identity. Now imagine someone who genuinely believes, I'm becoming successful. Without realizing it, they start acting differently. They wake up earlier, read one more chapter, send one more email, learn one more skill, stay consistent just one more day. None of those decisions feels life-changing, but together, they completely change the direction of a life. Think about two airplanes. If one changes direction by just 1 degree at takeoff, hours later, it lands in a completely different country. People think success happens overnight, but almost every overnight success started with tiny, invisible changes, repeated every day. That's why manifestation feels so mysterious, because the biggest changes are almost impossible to notice while they're happening. One conversation, one decision, one opportunity, one habit. Months later, your entire life looks different. Looking back, it almost feels impossible, almost magical. But here's something most people misunderstand: manifestation isn't wishing, it isn't sitting in your room, waiting for the universe to reward you. In fact, believing without acting changes absolutely nothing. The people who tell stories about the manifestation almost always leave one part out. While they were visualizing success, they were also working, learning, failing, trying again, again, and again. The visualization didn't replace the work, it made the work easier to continue because they already believed. The future version of themselves existed. They were simply catching up to it. So, does manifestation work? If by manifestation you mean thinking about money and expecting it to appear, probably not. But if manifestation means changing your identity, training your brain to notice opportunities, building confidence, taking action, and refusing to quit, then something incredible happens. Your future begins to look exactly like the picture you kept imagining. Maybe that's why so many successful people tell the same story, not because they discovered magic, not because the universe chose them, but because they chose themselves long before anyone else did. So maybe the law of attraction isn't attracting success. Maybe it's attracting your attention to the opportunities that were there all along. And that changes everything, because the universe may never hear your thoughts, but your brain hears every single one.